The Bartholomew Town Podcast and WPRO present the first Rhode Island Gubernatorial Democratic Primary Candidate Forum. Join Governor Dan McKee and Helena Foulkes as they discuss the issues and answer the questions Rhode Island voters want addressed. Hosted by Bill Bartholomew. Listen Monday, August 3rd at noon on 99.7 FM and AM 630 WPRO or stream it live at 997WPRO.com.
All right, thank you both for coming in today. This is the Bartholomew Town WPRO Democratic Primary Gubernatorial Debate. Helena Buonanno, Foulkes, Governor McKee. Governor, the coin toss bounced your way. You'll get opening statements, 60 seconds first.
Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks, WPRO, for having us here today. This election is a choice. Certainly my record in public service compared to my opponent's record in corporate boardrooms. I'm a governor that grew up at a Boys and Girls Club. I've rubbed elbows with every walk of life, and I bring that to my office every single day. As opposed to my opponent, who has worked in a boardroom, put profits over people her entire career. So let's talk about the issues today. Let's talk about our records today. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about the Washington Bridge. And then let's talk about my opponent's record. So right now, I'm in a good spot. I'm really happy to be here with the people. And one other thing I would say, look, my opponent last week said she raised $900,000 in a quarter, in answer to tens of thousands of people who have supported me, working families. I can't make it any clearer. She believes that she can buy this election with her money, and I would say that this office is not for sale.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Ms. Foulkes.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm running for governor because as I travel across the state, people are ready for change. I am a mother of 4. I'm a new grandmother. I'm a wife of 37 years. I'm a cancer survivor. I love this state. I started working at CVS in a cubicle right out of school. I had almost every job you could have. I became the head of all retail my last 4 years after 25 years at the company. So I was responsible for 200,000 people. I was the leader who decided to take cigarettes off of our shelves, walking away from $2 billion in sales. The thing I most learned was the power of listening, going to the front line and listening. And as I've been listening around this state, people are hurting. They're being priced out of this state. They're ready for change. Cost of housing is too high. Everything costs too much. And people want a leader who's going to start to address their real concerns. And I'm ready to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Foulkes. Public polls right now show that there's about a 20-point spread in this race right now. Governor, do you believe there's a 20-point spread in this race?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm out and talking to people every day. I know that we have the working families with us, and that's who I represent each and every day. They know that we've added 37,000 private sector jobs since I've been governor. We've closed the gap from Massachusetts on education considerably in the work that I do on education. We're investing in housing in a way that has never happened before. So we know that my record and the record of my administration is going to really put us over the top in September and again in November.
Ms. Foulkes, do you believe there's a 20-point spread in this race?
I'm fighting every day like I'm the underdog. It's very hard to beat an incumbent governor, and I understand that. But when I'm out talking to people, what I'm hearing from them is they're just not feeling what the governor is saying. They're looking at a CNBC report that says we have the worst economy in the country, that we have the worst bridges and roads, that we had the fewest number of housing starts, and yet we're the 5th most expensive state to live. So I can tell people are ready for change, but I'm going to fight every single day to win this race, and I know it will be very hard.
All right, let's get right into the issues here. I mean, let's not even obfuscate what we're here to talk about. There are some big ones. One of them is the Washington Bridge right up front. Governor McKee, where does the Washington Bridge stand right now? And where, in your mind, should this rank as a political issue in this election cycle?
It's all politics right now. I made a decision on a very short notice to close down the bridge to keep people safe and continue to monitor the bridge that we're using right now. People are safe, and that was the top priority. And also, we brought in one of the top bridge builders in the country. We're 2 years ahead of Baltimore, although my opponent said we're 2 years behind them. We're 2 years ahead, and we're months ahead of schedule. They're fabricating steel right now in Wisconsin. It'll be on site before the end of the summer. So, and then the last thing, look, we hold people accountable that gave the inspections that led us in the wrong direction and had not only the federal government but also the state, our congressional delegation supporting repairing a bridge that could not be repaired. So right now, in summary, look, we kept people safe. That was the top priority. I did that. You wouldn't want a Minneapolis situation where a bridge would collapse, and I avoided that by making a decision. It has been really tough on people. There's no question about that, especially the first 3 months. But we know that we're going to get, in the end, we're going to have a bridge that's going to be significantly better than it was before. And look, this can was kicked down the road just like many other things in the state. I'm a leader that actually stepped up, closed the bridge, kept people safe. We're in a legal process right now to hold people accountable who gave us the misdiagnosis that you would do with any doctor if you had a misdiagnosis. And now we're building a bridge with one of the top bridge builders in the country. And we had to tear down the bridge before we did it. So we're on schedule and significantly ahead of a schedule right now in terms of our contract. And people are going to see progress as they're seeing right now with the bridge being built.
Ms. Foulkes, why is this a political issue for you based on what the governor just said right there?
Well, he described it as all politics, and that's not what I hear from the people of Rhode Island. I mean, people are stuck on the bridge every day. People have had to change daycare, their commutes to work. It is really upending people's lives. And I think the governor put politics over people. I think once this incident happened, we could have moved much faster to have had a contract and get a bridge built. I'll give you an example. He put out a contract because he desperately wanted a bridge built by this election, and he had severe penalties in it if the bridge weren't built on time. He waited 6 months to see who would bid, and at the end of those 6 months, no one bid. So he had to start over. That cost all of us time and money, and that's really frustrating to people. And then those signs go up that say, "Thank you for your patience." People aren't feeling patient. They're really frustrated by it. And especially when he tells us it's on time and on budget, this just flies in the face of a normal person saying, that makes no sense to me. The governor promised a day of reckoning. I called for Peter Alviti to be fired the day I got in this race. And I've talked to so many people in this state who say to me, if that were my job, I would have been fired right away. The governor didn't do that, and people are really suffering as a result.
Your response, Governor?
Of course. First of all, it's inaccurate to say that the bid process didn't get us a bid. We got a bid that we needed, which was to tear down a bridge. We couldn't build a bridge until we teared down that bridge. We got a contract in place to tear down the bridge, but actually that contract was finished ahead of schedule as well. And then we had a contract with a top bridge builder in the country 6 months before the bridge was actually torn down. You can't build a bridge till you actually tear down a bridge. And then during that time, we put together, I had to work with both the Biden administration and the Trump administration to put in over $220 million of funds. The money's in the bank. The taxpayers are not going to have to pay anything out of pocket that isn't already budgeted. We have a contract with a price. As we said, Baltimore, my opponent said at her announcement that we were 2 years behind Baltimore. We're 2 years ahead of Baltimore with a contract, with a definite price. Yes, it has been a real pain in the ass to people. There's no question about that. But this was going to happen regardless of when that bridge was taken down. That bridge was being repaired, and it shouldn't have been repaired, and the can was kicked down the road. I ended up holding the situation, and I responded. I kept people safe, which was the priority of any administration. I also made sure that we went after the people that should be held accountable. Once I did all the due diligence that needed to be done, these inspections were done incorrectly, and they were done misleading, and they're going to have to pay millions of dollars. My opponent won't even say that she likes the idea that we're going after the people who are responsible. And then finally, look, there's going to be steel on site. We're ahead of schedule by months right now on the contract that was in place. There's no one that wants to see that bridge done quicker than me. I use that bridge. I have family. My son and daughter, daughter-in-law, along with my niece and my grandkids, live in East Providence. We're over that bridge all the time. This became a very political issue. I would not have my family go over a bridge, or anybody else, or Helena's family go over a bridge that was not safe. Right now, we are building a bridge, and what my opponent just said is not accurate. We got somebody on that first bid process. By the way, I don't do bids. I think that was established long ago in the last election. So we've got someone that is to tear down the bridge, and you couldn't build a new bridge till you tear down a bridge. And now we have Waltz Contractors in there, top bridge builder, that's actually going to build a bridge that's going to help alleviate many of the problems that were there long before I was governor.
Ms. Foulkes, firing Peter Alviti, the initial RFP, you outlined those as things you would do different. What else would you do differently in response to that? You say you're hearing people want change. What do they want specifically on this issue?
As far as I can tell, nothing really has changed at the DOT. We have an acting director. The governor promised us a national search. I definitely will do a national search. I have promised people that when I am governor, we will have someone leading DOT who knows no one in that department and no one in the state, because this department has become a place at the top where you got to know a guy. It's the insiders running it. People understand that. We outsourced all of the inspections. We had the head of the DOT, Alviti, who couldn't remember the head of that department's name. They had outsourced it all. And so we've got to bring capabilities in-house. We can do so much better with a real leader at the top, a real sense of accountability, and making sure that this is a department that's working for people. Just to give people a sense, 5 years ago, we were spending $449 million a year on bridges and roads. Last year, we spent $1 billion on bridges and roads, and yet we have the worst bridges and roads in the country. So when you talk about accountability, that doesn't add up to people.
So you're saying you would not retain interim director Rocchio at DOT, and you're basically saying that the entire department needs to be gutted? Is that how
I'm saying leadership starts at the top,
including department managers?
No,
how far
I'm
down
saying the leader at the top needs to be someone who comes in from the outside. There are probably some fine people working in the department. I've talked to people working in the department. They have felt the difference in the last 5 years of the lack of leadership. They talk about being in that department for 10 or 20 years and how much worse it is today for those of them working in the midline level of that department. So we need a leader at the top, starting with the governor, and then the head of the DOT, who's really working for the people of Rhode Island.
Governor?
My opponent has had no experience in government. Zero. She's never plowed a street. She's never put a road down. That extra dollars that's going into bridges and roads is a direct result of my leadership. When I came into office, we weren't doing our roads, and I put $100 million and freed up over $450 million of federal funds to start paving 295 that hadn't been paved in 20 years, to put paving 146, to put a bridge over at where the car dealerships are in the northern part of 146. There is more road work being done in this state than ever before, and it's under my leadership. So, and then Bob Rocchio, he's actually done a really good job. We just had a blizzard of 26, the largest blizzard in the entire history of the state of Rhode Island, and no one, not one person, including my opponent, never said a peep about a mistake being made there. We have good management in place. I decided that continuity was the most important thing in terms of transitioning to a new director. Peter and I parted ways months ago, and yet it's still being brought up as an issue. The work that's being done at DOT right now, I'm proud of. Every blue bridge is either a new bridge or a repaired bridge, and it's under my watch. Not only that, we brought the largest federal grant in, working on 15 bridges on 295, over $250 million. That was not there before I showed up. So to knock the work that's happening there right now, yeah, it's going to take a little while to catch up. And I also put a road restore program in for municipalities where we've done over 1,100 local projects. I'm a former mayor, and I understood how important it was. The state puts up $1, the community puts up $2. We've done over $140 million of road repairs and road work in our local municipalities. So our roads is not just our state roads, it's also our local roads. And I am investing in our local roads and our state roads at a pace that we've never seen before. Bob Rocchio even said the same thing.
Helena, last word on the bridge. Our election season content is supported by RIPHI, the Rhode Island Public Health Institute. RIPHI is an independent nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing complex health disparities in Rhode Island and beyond. RIPHI oversees a diverse range of public health programs addressing issues from healthy food access to infectious disease prevention. They also conduct research related to population health and train students and public health practitioners for fulfilling careers in Rhode Island's workforce. RIPHI owns and operates Open Door Health, the state's first and only LGBTQ+ focused community-based clinic. Open Door Health provides primary care, sexual health care, and fully integrated behavioral health care to nearly 6,000 patients across the state. Learn more at riphi.org. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. Bartholomew Town is proud to partner with Waterfire. Visit waterfire.org. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience message and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. And by the way, join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. Bartholomew Town is proud to partner with Newport Film. Visit newportfilm.com. Follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.
I just don't think people are feeling what the governor's describing. It is really tough out there. And they're looking for a level of accountability and transparency. I talk to people who live in the East Bay near the Mount Hope Bridge, and they want to know what's going on. Why has it taken so long for us to expose the state of our bridges? Why is this a big secret? People really want to know that, and they're very frustrated with the governor.
Governor, the Mount Hope Bridge, that's on the Rhode Island Bridge and Turnpike.
We post every report and every inspection strategy that you could imagine, and hand it over 1 million pages of reports and paperwork in this lawsuit that we're going after the inspections that were made that were done improperly, and that's the day of reckoning. It's going to take a little longer, but it's going to be millions of dollars. And my opponent doesn't even want to pursue that case as far as I'm concerned.
But that draft report that you held out there for a year, Governor, that was tough on people. They wanted
Helena,
to know why
let's
they
talk
didn't
about
hear it.
We were working with the Attorney General who was holding that report because of the case. He left it out, and I was happy he did. Just like I've asked for the reports to be released on the Mount Hope Bridge. We have a federal group that is saying hold off on releasing those reports. We've announced a couple times that those reports will be done. And that's the Rhode Island Bridge Authority that is separate from our office, right? They maintain those bridges. And they're doing a good job there. We need to make sure that all the reports are out. I disclose everything. So as far as what my opponent's saying, she's just misleading people in terms of the fact that we have an open book. My record is an open book. My opponent's record is not an open book. And so everything that goes on in our office, I respond. I've been on your podcast, your first podcast, and your 100th podcast, Bill. So I've been out talking to people and making sure they have all the information. I want to see the Mount Hope Bridge information put out there. And right now it's being held up by the federal authorities.
Yeah, on grounds of security issues. I want to just touch on this because you brought up the draft report.
Yep.
To contextualize that for anyone who doesn't understand what it is, it's a report that essentially, and this is the executive summary, said that there were some issues within the DOT when it comes to the oversight of the bridge. And this was from an external group. That report was then part of, yes, Governor?
I commissioned that report.
That report was as part of
I wanted
the
full
investigation.
in terms of what happened there.
You didn't share it, Governor. You didn't share it with the people.
Why wasn't it originally posted?
It was shared with the legal team who said at this point in time, we're going after the people who did the inspections, and it was their advice, legal advice, not to release it. When the Attorney General Nerona released it, I was relieved because I feel as though it should have been released. But at this point in time, either you work with the attorneys that you have on board or you fire them. And right now, I was saying they were making the right decision on behalf of the people in the state of Rhode Island. Every decision I've made, Bill, as a governor, has been in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island. That lawsuit is going to recover tax dollars that we deserve. The money that I brought in from Washington with both the Biden and the Trump administration and negotiated with both to bring over $220 million into the state. So as far as I'm concerned, the reports on the Mount Hope Bridge should be released. I said that publicly. I've said that publicly over and over again. So remember, that report that you're talking about is what I commissioned to make sure that there was full disclosure and everybody knew what was going on.
Well, there's a through line here, Ms. Foulkes, I want you to respond to, which is what would you do differently? Would you release those reports, that particular report, that draft report, engineering report, and other matters that are due diligence or pertinent to the case against the 13 contractors? Would you publish those even if it was against the advice of attorneys and against potentially compromise the case?
I think what the people of Rhode Island are looking for is leadership who is transparent and accountable. And in general, that is missing. That is missing in this particular case. And we can always hide behind lawyers. I understand that. But this is the chief executive of the state. He could have stood in front of the cameras and shared with people because people are nervous and they want to know what's going on. I called, for example, on other issues of transparency and accountability. The day I got in the race, I called for an inspector general. The governor said, we don't need one of those. We have spent billions of dollars as a state in ARPA funds and other sources. No one knows where that money goes. So I do think we're not just talking about the Washington Bridge. We're talking about a culture here where a few guys at the top know what's going on and the rest of us are in the dark. And that's what people are really frustrated by.
Who are they?
These are the people who are surrounding the governor every day. What I hear from people is they're his high school friends. They're the guys who run this state, and they don't reflect the people of Rhode Island, and they want to keep all that information tight. And we're living in a day and age where it's a lot of stress that people are going through. This is no small matter, and people deserve to know what's going on in this state. We deserve a governor who's going to share that information freely and be accountable himself.
Governor, I want you to respond to that. I just want to quickly, you would publish documents pertinent to the Washington Bridge or release them to the public, even if it was part of due diligence and legal proceedings. Governor, your response on
Well, first of all, that's just irresponsible, right? That's political, right? What we're doing is making sure we're protecting the taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island. The advice was in that report that I commissioned. By the way, we had posted up all the other reports that you could imagine for public consumption, and that and so that was transparency. So look, my opponent also took an interesting little side whack at the people that I actually have in positions of authority, and they are very capable. Whether it's my education commissioner, who my opponent wants to fire, who has brought us on attendance alone with my work to the 5th best in the country relative to recovering from the pandemic on attendance. And also, we've closed the gap, what I've set for Massachusetts to meet or exceed Massachusetts levels by 2030. We've already closed the gap by 40% on our reading, 20 or 30% or so on our math. We continue to improve. So, or whether it's my chief of staff, who during the snowstorm, the blizzard of 26 that I managed, by the way, my opponents never managed the snowstorm. And it's important to the safety of the people in the state of Rhode Island. We were closing a complicated financial deal with the hospitals that I helped save, both Fatima and Roger Williams, who were those people there when I visited there. They were scared that they were going to lose their jobs, and I said to them they will not lose their jobs, and they didn't. Well, we had somebody on our staff that was closing a complicated finance package that actually kept those hospitals open. I could go over and over and over again. The staff that I have in place, they are not high school buddies. These are professionals that are doing the job on behalf of the people in the state of Rhode Island, and I'm offended because you know what? As I said in my opening, when I rolled out tens of thousands of people that are supporting me, working families that are supporting me, what was my opponent's response? I got $900,000, and it doesn't matter that you have the working families with you because my money's going to win this election. Well, I got news for you, Bill. We have competent people working for the state of Rhode Island each and every day, and her money my opponent's money is not going to win this election, because the people that I serve and the people that I work with every single day to help their kids do better in school, to raise families' incomes, to make sure they're healthy, and building things at a rate that we've never seen before in the state of Rhode Island, putting people to work at good-paying jobs, building things. We have never seen a record like this. 37,000 jobs added to private sector jobs, twice the pace of pre-pandemic of any administration before me. So it is insulting when you start ridiculing staff that is qualified and is delivering for the people of the state of Rhode Island.
Ms. Foulkes, your response.
I'm sorry I offended you, Governor. You're
no, you offended the people that work for the state of Rhode Island.
Okay, settle down.
Not
settle
me.
down. Yeah,
not
settle
me.
down.
You
so
offended
listen,
the people that work for the state of Rhode Island.
I think it's very important we have a governor who has the humility to know how to surround him or herself with great people. And I don't think that this governor does that. He talked about the hospital work to save the 2 hospitals. I have spoken to many people who were in those rooms. They said, Governor, while those conversations were going on, you literally never said a word. It was like you didn't understand it.
Is that true? Quick, that's a direct accusation.
Look, I brought the president and the speaker together with an attorney general and put them right in the state room and said, these hospitals can't close. Send me a bill to put the $18 million of front money that they needed to get this transaction done, and I would sign it. That's leadership. So,
okay.
So you are.
So can I keep going?
Yes, and we're just to contextualize. We're talking about the Prospect Medical, the Fatima,
and by the way, they're very relieved. 2,400 jobs saved, and thousands of healthcare visits have been protected, and that's why UNAP is supporting me in this election.
But you were involved in the conversation, picking up where you were.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure
I heard differently, but regardless, everywhere I look, healthcare. He's talking about healthcare. We live in a state where people tell me all the time they are so worried their primary care doc is going to retire and they won't find a new one. We are on the precipice of a real collapse in our healthcare system. There are a lot of things that go into that. We need a governor who's going to push a truly comprehensive approach to healthcare and do much more than this governor has done.
Let's stick with this. In fact, I was speaking with the Rhode Island Public Health Institute, the nonprofit, and retention of physicians and PAs, so on and so forth, personnel. How will you, as governor, increase the literal number of medical professionals in the state? What does that look like to you?
Well, what's so interesting, and I've been going all around the state in people's living rooms and kitchens and talking to them, many of these doctors and nurses live in Rhode Island, but they travel to Massachusetts or Connecticut every day because they can make 30% more. And that's mostly because we have 2 fundamental problems. We have more people on Medicare and Medicaid as a percent in this state, and those both reimburse at lower rates, and we have very low Medicaid reimbursement rates. So the governor hasn't advocated for raising Medicaid reimbursement rates at the level they could be, and he's leaving federal money there. So there's a lot more we can do there. I met with a group of dentists recently who talked about the fact, one of them said to me, Helena, I closed down my dentist office in East Providence. I opened a new one in Seekonk. And what happened was I lost about 5 or 10% of the volume, but I made 30% more going to Seekonk. So that is fundamentally our issue. And until we really address that problem, we are going to continue to bleed the resources we need to other states, and people will suffer. And never mind the fact that obviously the Trump administration is coming and is going to wreak havoc, and there's much more we could be doing there, and I'm happy to talk more about that.
Well, certainly will. The governor on reimbursement
rates. So first
rates.
of all, it is a reimbursement problem, and it's a federal reimbursement problem primarily. We are between Massachusetts and Connecticut. I've talked to both administrations. I've talked to our congressional delegation. And both Connecticut and Massachusetts have a regional rate that's higher than our reimbursement rate, period. That needs to get fixed, right? Just like I helped really advocated to fix another problem on Social Security that was a national problem for teachers and others. And then as far as what we've done, look, my opponent served on a committee that actually that suggested, in the former administration, that suggested we reduce the amount of money that went to Medicaid. And also, across the board, made cuts to hospitals and nursing homes out of that session of reinventing Medicaid.
And what committee is that?
That was a committee that Governor Raimondo put together that my opponent, Helena Foulkes,
and you were
was
the
on.
lieutenant governor, and then
so-
you signed it again in 22. So I don't know what problem.
No,
you had
that's
with
not
it.
true. All right,
Yeah.
so her what we asked for was, in that letter that I sent to the federal government, was to expand what had been contracted under the leadership of Helena.
I was
Foulkes.
part of a 30-person committee.
So yeah, and you agreed to cut about $85 million from the
No,
Medicaid.
Governor.
That's what was said. And
That's
in
not
addition,
true.
that is true. And then in addition to that, right, cuts across the board to hospitals and nursing homes. When I came into office, our nursing homes were in big trouble. They had been cut. They had not been given a COLA for 6 years. I restored that COLA, and I actually went backwards to keep our nursing homes in business. Our hospitals, we have put more money into our hospitals under my administration than ever before, and we still have issues, clearly. But I'm also saying the work that we've done actually works against the work that my opponent was advocating for, and we haven't even got into her role, as a corporate person that laid off thousands of people when she went to Hudson and continued to hurt families and hurt people with income. So yeah, the hospital issue, we need to make sure that we get a regional rate, and we should be lobbying as hard as we can, which I am doing. I've met with Dr. Oz. I met with that administration and said, "Hey, we're not being treated fairly, right? We're not getting the same rates as Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we're between the two states. You need to fix that." So and in addition to that, we put millions and millions of dollars into making sure that we are providing opportunities for people to practice here. I'm supporting a medical school at URI with a plan to actually put a medical school there as a long-term solution as well. So, yeah, my opponent speaks, and she never really says what she would do. She's just saying, oh, there's a problem. Well, when you're governor, you actually have to solve
What does that
problems.
look like in a Foulkes administration?
So I want to just be clear for people, because I think they're two. I'm assuming the governor's not confused, but they're just two different components. Medicare is set federally, and Rhode Island does suffer from not having a high enough Medicare reimbursement rate. But Medicaid is set locally in the state. In this last session, we could have raised our Medicaid reimbursement rates by about $70 million and gotten a $126 million match from the federal government. So there were small incremental changes made, but not to that extent. That would have had a really big impact on the healthcare system in this state right now. So I do think that's an important distinction. That's what I would have done.
In terms of going back to the original point, how do you attract more talent and keep more talent in this state right now?
From a medical,
from a medical side.
Unfortunately, and many doctors and nurses say this to me, most of the healthcare professionals in this state have ties to Rhode Island. They love living here. That's why they practice. But, an average doctor today is graduating from medical school with $500,000 in debt. To become a primary care physician is one of the lowest paid professions in the medical field. So it's very hard to make ends meet when you could just practice in Massachusetts or Connecticut and make 30% more. So we really have to solve that problem, and that's what I will do when I'm governor.
Last word, Governor, on this?
Yeah, I think that long-term a medical school at URI, which I support, is going to help with focusing on primary doctors. And right now we're investing millions and millions of dollars in the hospitals to address an issue that was in serious trouble when I showed up. We're significantly better right now. The hospitals are improving as we speak, and they're a lot more solvent today than they were when I showed up.
All right, Governor, your campaign has been very critical of Ms. Foulkes and her historic ties to CVS, obviously her job at CVS, and in general, you've even just now have tied in her work at Hudson's Bay. Why?
Well, because my record is open. Everything that I do as a governor is open. Yet, why isn't my opponent's record open? She doesn't speak about Hudson Bay knocking off a couple thousand people, as she's making about $80,000 a day. That's where it's an unheard of compensation. But when you calculate what the compensation was, about $80,000 a day, letting a couple thousand people off, she has not had and then called them low-hanging fruit. That's an issue that the people of the state of Rhode Island need to know. And as far as she forgot to say that she was also in charge of the pharmacy in addition to retail. And there's reports that are coming out right now. And by the way, this is coming from the U.S. attorney saying that that as in charge, she turned her back on what was happening on the opioids for profits. It's right in the report. She will get deposed if she hasn't already been deposed. And at that point in time, instead of calling me a liar, you can call the U.S. attorney a liar, because that's what he's saying. That's what the report is saying under her watch. And in the articles that just been written, I mean, they're very clear that the claims that she's making about shutting down pill mills was not accurate as well. So and that's coming from the U.S. attorney. Right, that's coming from their lawsuit. That's saying that, and also reported again in 2 local newspapers that was the case. Right, so my record is open. My question is, why wouldn't my opponent's record be open?
Your response?
The governor has been governor for 6 years. He's been a politician for 30 years. The people of Rhode Island are suffering, and he chose for his first ads and most of his ads to attack really not just me, but CVS, one of the largest employers in the state. I've been very clear. Under my watch, we had an almost 40% reduction in opioids dispensed. All of that has been validated externally. We did do more than anyone in this country. And it was a very challenging time. In fact, the team at CVS met with the governor in March of 2018, showed him all the work we were doing, and he said they were doing an excellent job. So with that being said, I think what's sad for the people of Rhode Island is that we have a governor who's either attacking our largest employers or driving them away. Hasbro left 700 families in a really difficult spot, and this was something on the governor's watch.
But before we pivot to economic development here, were you deposed, or have you been deposed?
I have never been named. I have never been deposed. So the governor is lying once again. It's very important people understand that.
Governor?
You'll have the opportunity to tell the U.S. attorney that he's
Governor,
lying.
that is not true, and you should be honest with people. That's disgraceful, really. Okay? I went door to door this weekend in Cumberland, knocking on people's doors, and you know what they said to me? This is terrible what this governor's doing to CVS. Many of them work at CVS. They don't like it at all. So I think you should focus on the real things that matter to the people of Rhode Island.
Go ahead.
This is not about CVS. I helped CVS when I was a mayor. I helped them as a governor. Mm. My opponent wants to deflect her lack of leadership, her record, onto a great company. And
that is not true,
in the articles that have been written now by experts, it's clear that the work that was done, the most of the work that was done, what came after she left, after my opponent left.
That is not true.
It is absolutely true.
Did the work when you were at CVS? Is that when the reduction in opioids occurred?
Under my watch, we had an almost 40% reduction, and that was during my time.
Under your direct supervision?
Yes, under my direct supervision. So that is not true. And
back to Governor McKee, on your point,
the governor
please.
is really missing the point for Rhode Islanders, okay? You look at Mark Patinkin, who's always been a big fan of yours, Governor, in the Providence Journal. He wrote that you were driving CVS away. So
but he's a columnist, so there's no facts there. But I want the governor to be able to finish his take here.
Mm-hmm. My record is open. My opponent doesn't want to speak about her record. Prove that this 40%, because we haven't seen it.
Yes, it's public, Governor. Governor, that is public.
And also the work that was done, the federal guidelines that were followed by CDC, by CVS, thankfully, actually got activated in February 2018, a month or so after my opponent left that position. So the notion, again, trying to transfer her record, my opponent's record, saying that somehow that we're putting CVS in the headlines. My opponent is putting CVS in the headlines because she decided to run for governor. And she feels as though that her record is not open to the public's eye. She just talked about this full disclosure. She's not providing full disclosure. So CVS is an important company, and we're going to continue to work with them. We've also brought in 37,000 private sector jobs from the governor. We have expanded the maritime defense with dozens of companies. I met with FM Global. They needed us to do some things. They just invested in a headquarters in downtown Providence to stabilize them. I worked with Citizens Bank when they came to me and they said they needed X, Y, and Z, and we gave them X, Y, and Z to keep them here. Fidelity has grown by 3,000 jobs. Quonset has grown by 3,000 jobs. This notion that you put all your eggs in one basket, we've done that as a state. We called it 38 studios. You put all your eggs in one basket. Yes, Hasbro decided to leave. 700 jobs. We have, at $37,000, do the math, 37,000 jobs. Do the math. We've probably 30 times covered that potential loss that's coming in. And by the way, many of the Piet families, they may go up to Boston, they may not. They are here in the state. We're going to find jobs for them if they decide to stay. And my record on the economy is virtually second to none relative to job growth and also raising incomes right now. We just had 2 life sciences companies come in. There was no life science hub before I showed up, right? We had just 2 Organogenesis, $100 million investment up in Smithfield right now. Hundreds of jobs are going to be over $100,000. We had another company that we just, Nemesis, that we just announced they're going to take the top floor of the CIC building downtown Providence, 30,000 square feet, bringing in 240 jobs, average pay at $200,000. These are the facts. My opponent wants to talk about Hasbro and the bridge.
No,
the bridge is being taken care of. And Hasbro, look, that decision was made. They're actually a shrinking footprint. They couldn't even promise us the number of jobs that we needed to have to put in the programs that we have. And God bless them. They're a good company. They've been here for a long time. They decided to leave. But we didn't just stop our progress. We're bringing in companies right now. So
thank you, Governor.
The facts are the facts.
Okay. Ms. Foulkes, on economic development, what would be the key differential between a Foulkes administration and McKee administration?
Well, just to put it in perspective, and I think this is how Rhode Islanders are feeling it, CNBC reported we have the worst economy in the country, and we're the 5th most expensive state to live. So I think that people are feeling really worried about whether their children or grandchildren are going to be able to afford a good life here. What would I do? I want to make sure that the companies we have here stay here. I mentioned at the beginning, I think one of the things I am good at is being a good listener. And I would be meeting with all of these companies to say, what's it going to take for you to stay here and grow good jobs? I think if the governor had done that with Hasbro before the news came out, maybe he could have saved it. Maybe not, but I think there was a chance. So I think that's one very important thing. Second, we need to be much easier for small businesses to start a business, to run a business. I talk to so many of them who feel the burden of all the different city and state regulations that are put in place. So I want to do what Worcester, Massachusetts has done, create a one-stop shop to go start a business. I met a guy who wanted to start a food truck business. He said, Helena, I have to go to 14 different state and local agencies just to get all the permits and paperwork. Then I really want to invest in the ocean economy. We have incredible assets here in terms of URI, the Naval War College. And some good things are happening, but so much more could happen if we had a governor who really knew how to pitch companies and bring them here.
What's the differential, though, I think, just in terms of real world? How do you build on the blue economy right now specifically, or what sectors beyond ocean blue economy do you see as vital to at least target right now?
I think ocean really is the best, and that would be my number one priority. I have much more experience being able to talk to some of the leaders and bring more jobs in. But I also want to do more to make sure that people can get access to good paying jobs. So I proposed a big investment, $100 million in career and technical education, because those are the jobs of the future. I want to make sure that kids all over this state have access to good paying jobs. If you become a welder right out of high school, you could be making $85,000 at Electric Boat within 2 years with no college debt. So some work has been happening around the state, but we could do so much more. And I'm excited to do that. I know how to attract business. I know how to talk to these leaders. And I think it will really be a very important step for the people of Rhode Island. Again, we've got to move away from being 50th in the country.
All right, 30 seconds each for response.
Well, I think it's going to take more than 30 seconds to answer that question. Look, in the maritime defense, that's why I was out in California meeting with businesses, Andrill and others, that are building thousands of square feet and bringing hundreds and hundreds of jobs right now. That ship has left the station, so we're already doing that. So to imply that somehow that this is not getting done, we just opened up on the Bay campus at URI a $100 million investment for a underwater robotics plan. They hadn't invested seriously in that Bay campus until I showed up. A couple $100 million going in there right now. So we've doubled up or tripled up on the CTE programs. I attended this has already happened in Helena. You're not even watching, or you're denying.
No, I'm talking to people,
400 students from our high schools signed agreements to go to Electric Boat this spring after doing an apprenticeship program there for a year. 400 students. That's triple or quadruple of whatever was there before. So I could go point by point of what Helena just talked about. she's not paying attention, so she's either denying that we're having this growth or not denying. Look, the rankings are the rankings. My job is to figure out how to make this economy work. We just had more businesses start in this state in the last year than the history of the state of Rhode Island. So she's not paying attention, and she's misleading people in ways that, look, we are bringing in jobs. Fidelity. You talk about growing jobs with companies, 3,000 jobs. When I showed up, they were going to do 500 to 800. They did 3,000 because we were talking to the leadership there. What's happening down in Quonset? 3,000 jobs down there. We put money into their facilities down there, over $70 million to make sure that the piers were actually upgraded after 50 years of not paying attention. We put $40 million down into the fisheries down in Galilee that's never been done, by the way, and I knocked down that hotel that the birds were living in that never had been done for beautification. So, look, the work that is getting done in this state, would take a lot longer to outline what's happening in this state that is being ignored by my opponent, and she's basically telling people the things that she would do that are already happening. And by the way, I've got the government experience to actually get it done. My opponent has zero government experience, none.
Thank you, Governor. I rescind the 30 seconds, by the way, on this for your response, Ms. Foulkes.
Well, I think we've talked enough. I think, people can judge our backgrounds and decide who will be the best at helping businesses thrive. I do know how to do it. I'm excited to do it. I've talked to many people in the sectors the governor's describing who know that I would be a better leader in terms of bringing more business here.
Havoc in East Providence, Governor. Down in Bristol, the Organogenesis and Life Science up in Smithfield.
Governor, I'm not interrupting you. Could you let me finish?
Ms. Foulkes, please.
Yeah. So the governor mentioned in his answer a trip to California, and I think you're referring to the trip where you were there and you went to a basketball game. And so I just want to talk about that, too.
You're talking about Tidewater Landing, and now there's a report that Kawhi Leonard, who's an NBA star, may be one of the hidden investors, if you will, in this project. And then there's a report that you were at a Clippers game. Kawhi Leonard was playing for the Clippers. So I just want to set the context.
Thank you.
What do you want to bring
Well,
up with
I
this?
think what's important for the people to think about is, the governor said he cast the tie-breaking vote to build the most expensive soccer stadium this country's ever seen. This will cost taxpayers in the state $117 million. We got no housing out of it. There was a recent press release where we might get some at some point.
Would you vote yet? Would you have voted for the agreement?
I love a soccer stadium, but we could have gotten a better deal. So I would not have approved that deal.
You would not have approved the deal as was,
but
even if that meant they walked away.
I think we would have found a much better deal that wouldn't cost the taxpayers $117 million. But to me, it really feels clear that the governor has something to hide here. He said he invited himself to the basketball game, and then he ends up getting courtside seats. He happens to sit next to the president of the Rhode Island Football Club, along with two other state employees. He says he's reimbursed for the tickets. I'd love to see the receipt on that, because those tickets was the opening night in a new stadium. Must have been $5,000, $10,000 a pop. I'd love to see those receipts, Governor. And we're supposed to believe that he never had a conversation as he sat next to the president of the Rhode Island Football Club, that Kawhi Leonard was also an investor in the club. This in the football club, and I think this is another example of the lack of transparency.
Did you know that Kawhi Leonard was involved in this?
This is another example of deflecting from my opponent's record. She doesn't want to talk about it.
But on the specific, did you know that Kawhi Leonard was there?
Game. I love basketball, Bill. You and I talked about basketball. You love soccer. I love basketball. I did my business with Andrel, talked to Divergent, had them out here, potentially a company that might be coming to this state. I met at the headquarters of Amgen, who has the largest production center in their network right here in Rhode Island. And then after that work was done, I went to a basketball game. So what is the problem?
But did you know that Kawhi Leonard was one of the investors in RS?
No, I didn't know that. But
I
did know that. Brett Johnson said he had some professional athletes, but I didn't know that. But really, what does it matter? We want people to invest in our state. We want their money in our state. And so for my opponent here, Helena, to say that somehow there's some sort of conspiracy here, it's just another way that you're just deflecting away from your record and trying to have people think that somehow there's an issue with me going to a basketball game. So it's just crazy that we're even talking about it. This is an NBA issue. if they have if they've had a strategy to pay Kawhi Leonard more than he was entitled to because of the salary cap, that's an NBA issue. Let's leave the NBA taking care of the NBA issues. As far as the soccer stadium, people in this in leadership over the years turned their back on Pawtucket. You just heard Helena Foulkes basically say that she would have turned her back on that soccer stadium. We were in a situation where interest rates were going up, construction costs were going up, but we haven't even talked about our buddy President Trump. His tariffs and his escalating interest rates were causing major problems, as we were entering into that situation. So the whole issue here, Pawtucket needed a shot in the arm, and I gave it to them. And now to say that there's no housing going in there, we have just announced that we have the financing to bring infrastructure around that stadium to support 400 to 500 houses. We're going to build that bridge over the water bill, just like I said we would, and then there's going to be 400 to 500 units to add to the 7,000 units that we've already built since I've been governor, and the 15,000 units that are going to be built under my housing plan before the end of 2030.
Thank you, Governor. On the stadium, though, before we wrap it up, what would it look like in a Foulkes administration going forward now in terms of how do you manage this project? And if it does come out that there was some kind of connection here, that there was a scheme that, even though it's a third-party scenario, the NBA, the Clippers, it's not Rhode Island, do you feel comfortable being involved in that kind of scheme if, in fact, it comes out that that's the case? And I think that's an important qualification.
That's a big jump.
Well, that's where we're setting the tone right now.
The innuendo that's going to get floated by my opponent here. That didn't happen.
That is the political issue.
So if we want to have professional athletes invest their dollars in the state of Rhode Island, line them up. Because I would be happy to bring them in. But let's get back to the...
Ms. Foulkes, on the stadium as currently constituted.
I think the issue at the time, and still, Governor, is that I have no problem with professional athletes, and I love soccer. But I think the state, if it's going to put out $117 million over the next 30 years, should know who every single investor is. And that's really the issue, is the lack of transparency. And the fact that the Governor, you're sitting at courtside seats with the head of the soccer club and two other state employees, and you sort of say you invited yourself and you didn't really know Kawhi Leonard was an investor. That makes no sense to me. At no point did Brent Johnson say to you, oh, yeah, Kawhi loves soccer and he's an investor in Rhode Island. I just don't think that feels true. So
you're calling me a liar, Helena?
I would like to know the truth. I'd like to see the receipts. I'd like to see the receipts.
You've done that more than once.
But beyond the specifics here, the issue you're raising, whether or not this story trues out as is, because if it doesn't, it's just a thing that happened. It's not there's no political story if this doesn't turn into a scheme, right? But beyond that, you're saying that any project the state gets involved in, you would publish the name of any, and there would be no silent investors.
Right.
Would that include at the corporate level where a corporation with anonymity could invest in projects? Would you require disclosure of all human beings involved in projects?
Yes, every investor should be disclosed. And I also would lean on people who are smarter than me. I've always said, I want to surround people who are smarter than me. When the governor and Commerce were putting this deal together, I think they could have leaned into people who wanted to get a better deal for the state. And that's all I'm saying. I think that if he had taken more time to do that, the people of Rhode Island would have had a really nice soccer stadium for less money and more housing.
Could we have gotten a better deal?
By the way, we put into the transaction that we can buy it out in 10 years. It's not going to be $117 million. It's going to be significantly less than that. We float the numbers out on a 30-year amortization schedule as if you were going to pay for your house on a principal and interest over 30 years. We did the right thing. I did not turn my back on Pawtucket. I will not turn my back on Pawtucket. My opponent wants to distract a silly story about me attending a basketball game and then drumming up this whole conspiracy level. Look, she doesn't want to talk about her money went into a Trump victory fund. She doesn't want to talk about money going to McConnell, Senator McConnell, who rigged the Supreme Court and took away the Roe versus Wade from the women in this country and the women in this state. She doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to talk about that. What she wants to talk about is I go to a basketball game. I like basketball. I went to a basketball game. End of story. I paid for my ticket. I'll make that disclosure. It's a shame right now, quite frankly, in this state that I go to a game, I pay for a ticket, and I have to disclose that ticket. But that's what happens when you're governor, by the way. What happens when you're governor, Helena, is that you are an open book and you have to show it over and over again. And I've done that over and over again to do the work that I'm doing. But yeah, you do not want to disclose that you put your money into a PAC that went into a Trump victory fund, that your money went into Senator McConnell's pocket as he's rigging the Supreme Court to take away our rights on the Supreme Court. So you want to talk about a basketball game? Let's talk about that.
Your response, Ms. Foulkes.
Well, I do look forward to seeing the receipt from both you and the 2 state employees for the basketball game, because I think those tickets could have been anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 each. As far as your lie about me and Trump, I've said from the beginning, I think Trump is a despicable human being and the worst president we've ever had. I have never given a dime to Donald Trump, and the governor knows that. So that is a whole bunch of lies.
Why do you continue to repeat that?
The money, Helena Foulkes' money, went into a political PAC, and that political PAC donated to a Trump victory fund.
At which company are you talking about, Governor?
At CVS. And then also
CVS.
The money that Home Depot, the PAC there as well, went into MAGA candidates as well.
Okay, so that's important. I want to talk about both
let's
those.
Let's go back to
to
respond to both of those things. Ms. Foulkes, please.
At Home Depot, I did donate to the PAC at Home Depot. Yep. At Home Depot, we were allowed to dedicate our funds to a particular party. Every year I donated, I checked off the box to only give my money to Democrats. At CVS, I had no control over the PAC money. I was the head of the retail business, no involvement in the PAC. So you're really, again, attacking CVS, which is fine. And those are just the facts. And it's important for people to know.
So you've never donated to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign individually or through a PAC?
In no way. And plus the fact I donated to Kamala Harris and was very proud to support her in the last election. So people know this, and this is just a diffusion.
It's a fact. The money went into a PAC that she put money into that went to a Trump victory fund.
So you're criticizing CVS again. That's fine,
No, I'm not
Governor.
criticizing
yes,
CVS.
You are.
I'm criticizing you for not saying that was the wrong thing to do. You should be out there saying you should not be putting money into a PAC, a victory PAC for President Trump that was causing us problems on our SNAP benefits, ICE coming in, the ACA in terms of the work that's happened there. I had to go to court with the Attorney General and to keep Revolution Wind alive. Look, President Trump is not a friend of this state, and he's causing some serious problems for us across the board. Your money went into a Trump victory fund by way of a PAC. You should be saying, give me my money back, because that money should not have gone to the Trump victory fund.
All right, so let's talk about, we have just a few minutes left, keeping these questions tight on ICE, Ms. Foulkes. What would you do about ICE in Rhode Island as governor? Would you, for example, if ICE violated the polling place provision that the governor just signed, that you can't be within 200 feet of a polling place if you're an ICE official, would you instruct the state police to engage with ICE?
Yeah, ICE is terrorizing Americans. ICE is, what's going on under Donald Trump is horrendous. ICE is killing innocent Americans, and I will do everything I can to make the people of Rhode Island feel safe. People are staying home right now. It's hurting businesses. Kids aren't going to school. It is a really terrible time. I have a friend who's been in this country 25 years trying to get legal status. He was taken by ICE on the courthouse steps. He has 3 grown children and a grandchild here. That is the wrong thing to be doing, and I will do everything in my power to protect Rhode Islanders.
That your powers would include the National Guard and the state police. Would you instruct them to intervene in a scenario where federal agents were engaged with a civilian or anybody else for that matter? Would you instruct the state police to get involved?
I will, because if they're doing things that are illegal on the court steps and places they shouldn't be, then we have to protect the people.
Governor, you haven't taken that type of step yet. No, there hasn't been any known confrontation between state police or National Guard and ICE. If it came down to it, in order to enforce that which you just signed,
they're on my direction. I meet with the state police, the National Guard, and the emergency management on this very issue. That's why I signed the four bills that went through in terms of like putting larger circumferences around the voting areas, as well as protecting people at the courts. Good thing we had a judge step up when that young man was being detained by ICE. Otherwise, who knows where that man would be? I've got you talk about personal friends. I have a young man that went to the school that I started, right? We haven't even talked about education really thoroughly here. He was in this country at 1 year old, Bill. And then he approached me and my staff and said, I just got a notice that I have to leave this country. And I actually met him at one of the World Cup events in Central Falls, and he said, look, I'll do anything for you, Governor, in terms of you help me get an education. By the way, he's out of college now, owns a home, and they're asking him to leave this country. And we stepped in to make sure that didn't happen. So, yeah, this is a problem. Trump's a problem. Look, he's a problem. When the government shutdown happened in this fall, who stepped forward and make sure that every SNAP benefit was paid to the families and the people that deserve it? I did. I made sure that happened. And yet he was making a political issue out of food, which is unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. Right now, I had to put in the budget millions and millions of dollars, by the way, millions of dollars to offset costs that are coming our way because of health care costs, helping 20,000 people keep their health care in my budget as well. So, yeah, Trump's a problem, and we have to deal with it. But at the same point in time, we got to protect the people that are being profiled in an unconstitutional way.
Thank you, Governor. Before we get to our closing statements here, Ms. Foulkes, just lastly on the bulwark against Trump, which I think is the discussion we're having right now. What does that look like for you beyond just simply potentially deploying the state police in a confrontation with ICE if need be?
Well, Trump's a bully. You know, he's like a 7th grade boy who just gets away with what he wants to do, and he's terrorizing not only Americans but the world we live in today. The war in Iran is jacking up gas prices and cost of groceries. So it's very hard. I tell people all the time, this is why elections matter. We really have to replace him. But in the meantime, we need strong governors now more than ever. Now even more than 4 years ago, we need a really strong governor. And we know we need governors who will team up together and work with other governors of New England states. And I do know how to do that. I have great relationships with other governors in New England, and I look forward to serving the people of Rhode Island because it's a scary time, and we need a governor who really protects us.
Thank you, Ms. Foulkes. Let's go to closing remarks here. If we could, 60 seconds. Governor McKee.
One, but you can have another one if you like.
Governor, you're first.
No, I'm last.
You heads the
Yes.
coin bounced their way, so you went first, and now you'll go first again.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to go.
Yeah,
I'm happy to go right now. Look, this election does matter. I'm with the people, and voters should be very concerned about the corporate interests that my opponent represents. That's who's bankrolling her campaign, and that's who she's going to be working for. I'm working for the people. Like I said, I grew up in a boys' club. My wife Susan and I met in high school, married 52 years. We have grandkids right now. We want our education to work, and I'm probably the best education person that's ever been in the office, in a governor's office, and I got the background to prove it. My energy program is going to save billions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars. My opponent's energy program is actually going to cost people money. People need to know that. My housing plan is working. Millions of dollars. I'd like to know whether my opponent is actually going to vote for the bond that's put on $120 million for more funding for our housing. The housing is working. My opponent's plan for housing is a house of cards. It'll fall apart because it can't even be funded because she wants to use the very money that we're using to protect the people against Trump's issues that we just went over. So I'm asking people for their vote. At this point in time, I'm the governor that's working for the people. My opponent would be a governor that would be working for corporations, and she believes that this office is for sale. I'm telling you right now, the people in the state of Rhode Island are going to support me, as they have in the past, because this office is not for sale. This office is an office for the people, and as long as I'm governor, that's exactly what it's going to be.
All right, Ms. Foulkes.
Well, for far too long, people are really feeling priced out of this state, and they don't feel like they have a governor who's working for them. It's very stressful out there. And we need a governor who can really deliver for the people of Rhode Island. Under Dan McKee's leadership, we have 50th in the country in our economy, 50th in bridges and roads, 50th in housing production, and yet we're the 5th highest cost of living state in this country. So the numbers aren't adding up. People are hurting. We need a governor who's going to take action on behalf of them. My housing plan will build 20,000 new housing units that really work for middle-class families, all families in this state. We've got to start doing much, much more. And the millionaire's tax can be dedicated to that and really make a difference for Rhode Islanders. I know that people are ready for change. They say it to me all the time. It's a tough time out there. This is a man who's been a politician for 30 years, a lieutenant governor, a governor for for 12 years now, and people are hurting and they're looking forward for change, and I'm ready to serve them.
Thank you both for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Bill.
I know the voters do as well. Helena, Buonanno,
Thank
folks,
you.
Governor McKee. I'm Bill Bartholomew. This is the Bartholomew Town WPRO Democratic Primary Gubernatorial Forum.
The Bartholomew Town Podcast and WPRO present a Providence Mayoral Democratic Candidate Forum. Hear Providence Mayor Brett Smiley and challenger David Morales discuss the future of the city and the issues shaping this year's election. Hosted by Bill Bartholomew. Listen Tuesday, August 4th at noon on 99.7 FM and AM 630 WPRO, or stream it live at 997WPRO.com.